startup, to be able to get leverage on that ecosystem, you need to know what you're asking for. So I meet a lot of startups and they talk about what they do, what they want to do, but they don't have a clear ask. And when I ask, how can I help you? They don't really know. And that's one of my key messages today. I mean, the ecosystem is there, the resources are there, the people are there, and if you have a clear ask, and I cannot help you, maybe I can reach out to Trond or Jan, and he can reach out to the ones that could be possible, but that wouldn't be possible if I don't know what you are asking for. So you have to be clear what you ask for.
The opportunities in Norway to actually get people aligned with your vision early on is so obvious. It's so relatively easy because of everything we talk about. That for us as an investor is an incredible sign of investability. So when someone comes to us and operates as this kind of lone genius with a phenomenal idea that is not shared with anyone, it's not investable. Forget it. It's very important. No one is looking for you to be that smart. They're looking for you to actually bring people in. And the quality of the people around you early on is one of the first milestones and markers on your quality. Before you have an MVP, before you have customers, kind of who is with you. Remember that. Keep that in mind.
I want to back up Trond there. I have an example of a guy I've known for like 20 years. He has more than 100 patents to his name. He started dozens of companies, but he's so afraid that somebody's going to steal his idea that he won't share anything unless it's like a 10-page NDA signed by all parties. And I helped to introduce him to a really big like investor in the US that I know in Silicon Valley. And it ended up not being a meeting because the guy in the US wouldn't sign the NDA and the guy in Norway wouldn't show him the idea before the NDA was signed. And so now nothing is going to happen. He's going to go out of business simply because he wouldn't take that meeting. And I mean, that's something you definitely don't want to do. You know, be practical. And in my mind, NDAs is something that belonged in the 90s. It's things are moving so fast now anyway that you know, nobody's going to have a 10-year advantage to the market anyway. So just go.
I think if you only realize the value of that question and the answers that came out of that. So I'll just give you a moment to digest what was just spoken there on stage, because it's super important, specifically starting from, you know, Howard telling, I'll give you my email ID, we'll show it to you on stage, and then just get in touch with me, and then, you know, through Martin saying how he was even surprised, how is he having such top people as board members in your organization, and how many of you have top board members in your startups or scale-ups? Well, we have at least one person there, you know, of course, yeah. And so that's a lot of information there. So, you know, I would strongly suggest you take that information, because these board members not just give you advice, they can open doors. You know, they can bring in unbelievable value, knowledge, contacts, so on and so forth. I mean, Kenneth Winter, who introduced us, Jan, is you know, we're working together, so, you know, incredible amount of value that he brings into here.
I want to give you a very exact example of this, because my platform started as an e-commerce platform, but we're moving more and more to be an income platform. So my dream was, okay, we created this for the sports teams, right? But most of them are actually on Splace right now doing crowdfunding campaigns because they need the money a lot faster than selling 1,000 t-shirts to be able to get the money. So I was like, okay, I want to create my own crowdfunding solution in our platform. So you can do that and have an e-commerce store, and you can do sponsorships and fan funding and other stuff, right? So I just want to add on that. But I don't know anything about crowdfunding. So what did I do? Well, I searched up who started Splace, who was a part of that. And that was Håkon Jensen, which was there from the beginning to the past 500 million Norwegian kroners funded, and then he started working somewhere else. And I called him, literally called him, and said, "Hi, to Martin, remember me with Supporter? How are you? Advisory board interested?" And he said yes immediately. And he's helping us develop our crowdfunding solution, right? Like, I couldn't get a better partner than someone who has done it before and succeeded with it. So think, when you're gonna get outside help, make sure it's people that already succeeded. And even though they have done a humongous success doing it, don't be afraid to ask, because you never know when they say yes. And he said yes, and I was like, this is crazy, but it helps us move forward a lot faster, of course.
Any more questions? And everyone just went silent on the platform, so I guess that they felt the impact of that question. And well, I mean, we have 4 more minutes to go. We promised to finish this 7:45. So, anything of interest that you would like to add to people who are just starting in their startup journey, or who have just started, who have just gone beyond an idea to move to the next phase?
This is purely for SaaS companies, but it can also be relevant to any type of startups. When you're starting a startup, the first thing you think is, how am I going to cut costs? How am I going to get freebies? How am I going to, But actually, I met with one startup that was like, no, how am I going to get my first client? And I kid you not, this startup already is in like other countries in Europe before he even got clients in Norway. And I was so shocked, but it really does work. So if you sometimes focus on who's going to be my client first, and then kind of track back and be like, okay, now I'm generating this or this much, something as we mentioned before, not for free, okay. Then you can start thinking, I'm in a moment where I can think about cutting down my costs. Where are the different programs that I can cut down my costs? Is it through credits in software companies? Is it through funding, and so forth? So always keep in mind, I know it's expensive and I know that's the way to survive. I'm not saying don't think about it completely, but definitely think of selling yourself. Don't sell yourself too short. Think about your first client, your first customer. Think big. Do not be afraid to go down that route as well, because if you get in the mindset of your costs, you're going to forget about your revenues.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Would you like to add?
I think perhaps in a world where there are startup incubators and accelerators all over the world, just as you know, I do a lot of work in Africa. And we just had a big conference, and there were 118 startup accelerators there from Africa. So you can assume that, in a way, whatever idea you have, someone else has thought about it. There might be already 10 of them out in the market. So pushing yourself for kind of true distinctiveness is very important. Back to kind of this, investor point of view, getting funded. And we are sometimes asking, what is the unique founder insight? What is the unique insight you have that is the basis for you deciding to go after this opportunity? And actually, this insight should be counterintuitive. If your insight is the same as everybody else has, it's not valuable. You have to come to a point of view that is different from everybody else. And that's what we spend an hour on very often with the founders. Tell me about your unique founder insight and tell me how it's counterintuitive. That's my thought.
Yeah, and of course that is in the business in canvas. Uniqueness. So if you have done your work and you have done that, you see it there. And it's 2 ways. It's that or go to market first.
Yes, and I would like to add to what you said, Trond. I mean, sometimes it's not the best to be first. Maybe it's better that someone goes first and softening the market, and then you can take the second wave to actually have mature customers that are willing to pay for your service. So don't be afraid for competitors.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. just behind you see the screen, our team, we all worked, this is a non-profit initiative, so all of us have our own businesses and so on and so forth, but we come together here to help startups, and we talk about other interesting topics as well. Our desire is to educate people. Technology has taken over our lives. November 2022, ChatGPT was introduced to the world and our life just changed, right? And we are all still trying to figure out what that's about. We're trying to figure that out in May. So hope you will join. Yes, one last question.
For everyone on the board. So when you see a startup or an idea, how do you separate the good ideas or startups from the bad ones? And like, what do you, as a startup founder, or when you're looking to accelerate a business, what do you look for? What's the thing that separates the excellent from the generic that will fail? How do you find the gems?
So I'm not an expert, I'm just saying that. I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to give you medical advice here, but like a lot of people are pitching their ideas to me too, right? I've been very actively in a mentorship and in some investments. And again, like people are so busy telling me what they think about their own ideas. So I always stop and say, well, what does your client say? What does your customers say? Why do they buy your product? Do you know? And if you don't know, you're already exited. I can't help you. Because that's how you build a better product, right? You need to know what the market is telling you. I have so much focus on that as my own business, but I also think others should. And that kind of like separates a good business for me is not necessarily if the business is going well or the idea is good. It's more about how is it experienced by your customers, because that's building your business, and that's what's going to be recommending your business in the future. So yeah,
We don't, no. Actually, when you pitch and I'm interested, I take it to another round and we take another pitch with a bigger group. And if the bigger group said this is great, we can go to the experts. If you are in an industry that I'm not aware of or have knowledge about, I use my network. So I can go to AstraZeneca and say, is this a great life science stuff? Or I can go to ABB and say, is this a good industry stuff? So I use my network.
Most of you, as I told you in my earlier speech, will be dependent on attracting new investors, in your case, at some time out there. When I look at the pitches and the investor presentations, I look at a lot of them, and company presentations. I very seldom see what's the upside for me as an investor. You need to, there's a lot of stuff about the product and about the team, and also about how you're going to save the world. But you should, for me, I think you should, at an earlier stage in the presentation or in the pitch, you should tell what's the upside for me as an investor, and really tell the plan for your scale, for your scalability, and I think I do not think that I think you have to change that plan many times on the run, but you have an idea of the potential in your case. So I think you should try to pick up the investor mind when you do the pitching to what do the investor look for. Yes, he wants to save the world, but he also wants to earn money on you.
Let's hear what an investor is actually asking for.
So, as I alluded to, I think your basically discovery process to get to the insight is very important. And that means that you also have to be authentic. So like the most recent investment I'm doing is with an AR development team that comes out of Bakken & Beck, a design company here in Oslo that's been working on AR for 8 years with leading global customers. And I've seen that for AR design, there is no good tool available. And then they can talk about how they have been working with this for many, many years. And I've felt the pain, boom. That's the discovery process that makes them authentic. And then how the founder team complement each other. That they're not similar. That there is one more on the tech side, one on the product side, one on the so complementarity in the team, the discovery process, and being authentic and being passionate, so that you stay in, although it's going to be really tough, so that you're resilient. These are very important things for an investor. And I'm the type of guy who likes to problem solve with the team, so I need to follow their discovery process, and I need to get to a point where I feel that this is really important. I can understand that this is new, and and then I also check with my network and so forth. Secondly, we never invest in anything that cannot become $100 million revenue, because $100 million times 10 is a unicorn. So when you're a venture investor, you have to invest into stuff that can become big. So remember, you have to have the story on getting to $100 million, I would say. Anything else is too small. Then you should go to family and friends and credit cards. Then I think it's very important that you create something scalable. So what is your story? That basically means that as you grow bigger, your margin is expanding. Like a company like Cognite has the big problem at the moment because they've proven no scalability. So margins are collapsing as they're growing. So we're trying to understand early on what's your strategy for product integrity. Not running after all types of revenue, but actually being very diligent on scalability. And so we go through the tech and the tech architecture early on and stuff like that. So it's scalability, size, authenticity of the team, and then eventually what we think this actually can become in the next rounds, and the attractiveness as the investor. And there I would say something very important I learned from Spacemaker, where in 3 years we got 88 times return in cash, was that it's very good if the growth is capital light. If you need a lot of capital in every round, you're being diluted like crazy. But if you do something that's capital light, as an investor, it makes it particularly attractive. So these type of things we are talking about in the first meeting, we're calibrating between these different points to see whether this actually can become a winner in the world. Because if you want venture investing, you are saying that I want to play in the Olympics, because it's global. There are only 2 or 3 global winners. You have to convince the investor that you can be on that kind of podium, And what's in your background tells me that you are a podium team. What's in your background is the sources of excellence. Telling me that you always go the extra mile. That you, on whatever dimension you want to tell me about, have been the best. Very important. Otherwise, you're not investable.
I just want to add one thing. It's about timing. In 1998, I invested in 2 companies. One that I had really high hopes for. They had made a pad that you can keep on your lap, surfing on the internet by moving your finger, expanding and unexpanding the screen. It was the iPad in 1998. That company flopped completely. It was 10 years ahead of its time. Nobody understood what they should use that product for. And it didn't work that well. But it could have been a good idea. The other one, at the same time, made it possible for all of us to see different ads on the same page at the same time, depending on what our interests were, depending on what we had clicked on before, and so on. That company was DoubleClick, and the investors in 1998 in DoubleClick made 585 times their investment in 18 months. Our main investor in Sweden made 585 million kroner in 18 months investing in that product. Both products were awesome. The iPad made more money in the long run, but the timing was wrong, right?
Well, I guess anyone else would like to add, or can we conclude? We're good? All right. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you very much for being with us this evening, and hope to see you